You may not be making money with your trades, but at least you have memes. The whole thing is trying to make people frightened of the IRS and frightened of big government, and this is just... According to a civic science survey of a bunch of people, 4% of Americans have made enough money from digital asset investments to quit their jobs. Hey, listen, I quit. He showed me this Bitcoin thing. Okay, there's so many things that come from innumeracy. Innumeracy is where people don't understand basic numbers. If I told you that 4% of Americans have made enough money to quit their jobs, how many Americans would that be?
Well, there's 330 million Americans. So 1% of Americans is 3.3 million. And 4% of Americans is something like 13 or 14 million people.
13 or 14 million people is more than 10% of the entire US workforce. So this is obviously wrong. This is actually very funny. When you sold the family car to buy more Bitcoin, and now there's a family riding a scooter. Ironically, we're here in Paris right now, and that's what we see all day long. Not quite 4 people on one scooter. They say a wealthy country is where the rich ride public transportation and not where the poor own cars. When you start trading a meme stock, 1 hour here is 7 years on Earth. It's really true. Meme stocks are not for the faint of heart. Everyone thinks, oh, how simple, buy GameStop. It shot up from 4 to 250 or 400. 100 bagger. How easy is that? Well, it's not easy. A meme stock is some stock where the valuation is driven not by the fundamentals. How much money is the company expected to earn over the next several years? That's the traditional form of valuation. Instead, it's driven by how many people are excited about this as kind of a funny joke. GameStop sitting amongst Tesla and Amazon after Reddit users make it a Fortune 500 company. That's the joke. Everyone knows GameStop is not much of a company. Ironically, the Wall Street kitty who kind of kicked all this off actually was a very well-reasoned deep value investor saying it was worth more than the market thought it was. At the time, it was down at like 4, meaning it was basically on its way to, the graveyard. He thought it was worth a little bit more, but then people took off with it and used it as a vehicle for sticking it to wealthy hedge fund managers and so forth. When she looks through your phone, but all she can find is, what is margin call? Can I get a refund on stock? Best way to tell my wife I lost our savings, Wendy's near me. If your wife wants to look at your phone, I think you should be able to just hand her your phone, look her in the face, and let her page through it, which means you use DuckDuckGo to deal with all the naughty bits. But first, so what is a margin call? A margin call is where if you're using margin, it means you've taken a loan from your broker to make further investments. The margin loan is secured by the assets that you already have. And if your assets are declining, then your margin loan can be called back and they can ask you to pay back the loan immediately if you've lost some money. New trader, yeah. Oh yeah, experienced trader. Whack! Right in their face. And I agree completely. The fact is that skill and experience do not necessarily lead to success on Wall Street. Bloomberg Businessweek, how to lose 20 billion in 2 days. This guy will be famous forever. He had everything. Health, enormous wealth, prestige.
This is one of the most spectacular failures in modern financial history.
No individual has lost so much money so quickly.
Greed just completely took hold of him and he went further and further and further up the greed ladder until finally he blew himself up. My advice is to invest in tennis balls. They have a high rate of return. Anything with a golden retriever is cute. And get it, return, little double entendre. Long-term investors who check their portfolios once a year, up 237%, of course. Good looking, full beard. Day traders who place 56 trades a day, negative 83%. Exactly. Because really, who has 56 good ideas a day? I'll say this, that these people who don't check their portfolios have made one decision, which is probably a high probability decision and a good one. Chad Powell during his speech, some of you will suffer, but that's the sacrifice I'm willing to make. Yes, that's exactly right. What makes this interesting, I think, is it's all about your time frame. As a long-term investor myself, I'm fine with the market going down a little bit. I'm not happy, but I accept it. The Fed must induce monetary stability. There's really only 2 things the Fed is supposed to do, which is maintain high employment and maintain monetary stability. The third thing the Fed is supposed to do is not make sure equity assets continue to rise. Powell, in his speech, said, "My priority is containing inflation. We will remain vigilant," which means there could be future interest rate hikes. In the short term, no one wants to be holding ahead of an interest rate hike. So he's created a negative catalyst in the future that now everyone's trying to manage around, and they're selling. Inflation rises, creditors, debtors. Yes, inflation reduces the value of fixed rate debt. If you took out a mortgage at 3%, which was available for many years for the past, and inflation is running higher than that, you're actually getting paid to have borrowed the money. I love these. Someone is increasing interest rates. I'm increasing interest rates to combat inflation. Good. Food, energy, housing, and transport costs will decrease. They will decrease, right? This is the ugly, unfortunately true side of inflation, which is that once inflation happens, it's very likely that those prices will be sticky and will not decline. Now, some prices do decline pretty easily. Energy prices do decline. Gas, we've seen, has been falling. Price of electronics and things imported from China historically have been falling. But for the most part, most other things don't fall in price. And I just love Anakin and Princess Amidala, whatever her name is. Not sure if revolutionary stablecoin or just a pyramid scheme. Me either. Well, recently a bunch of stablecoins, which are cryptocurrencies that are somehow pegged to real currencies. I don't really understand how they work, but I do know that a few of them have gone to zero quite quickly. You know, they were trading consistently at 1, which was the peg to the dollar, and then very rapidly broke the peg and went to zero. There's all sorts of schemes out there to get over the many hurdles of crypto adoption. The fact that it's mostly useless in most situations is sort of a stumbling block for most people. And one of the ways they try to encourage people to use crypto as a currency is to create something called a stable coin. I mean, why would you feel comfortable transacting in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency when the value is constantly fluctuating? So instead, they came up with this concept of stable coins, which had, in theory, stable value. But of course, they don't. It's kind of like some countries have pegged their currency to the dollar, and it creates all sorts of constraints around their behavior and doesn't really work. Not now, sweetie. The IRS is auditing the 610 your uncle Venmo'd me last Christmas. First of all, a gift of less than, I think, $11,000 is tax-free, certainly to the giver. The whole thing is trying to make people frightened of the IRS and frightened of big government, and this is just... Check out my video on horrible investment advice from TikTok. Bye-bye.